Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm JJ Flazanes, your empowerment strategist and producer. Thank you for downloading today's episode. David Wolfe is back. This is our third show. We're going to talk about the healing power of herbs. Before I let you know a little bit more about David, if you're new to him and have not heard him on the show before, I just want to remind you that if you're getting today's episode and listening to it in real time, so it is Tuesday, May 23rd, then we are doing a free webinar tonight, Dr. Doreen DeStefano and I, on using your mind to improve healing. So if you haven't heard that episode and you don't know about tonight's free live webinar, there will be a replay, but we also have a special gift for those that are coming live. So even if you can't come live, but you'd like to hear it, there will be about a 24 to 48 hour window where you can watch the replay. Go to jjflazanes.com/mind healing. Again, that's jjflazanes.com/mind healing. And the link for that will be in the show notes. So David Avocado Wolfe is the rock star and Indiana Jones of the superfoods and longevity multiverse. His social media posts reach millions of people each week around the world with succinct, powerful, inspirational quotes, news, health information, and education. With over 26 years of dedicated experience and having hosted nearly 3,000 live health events, David has led the environmental charge for radiant health via a positive mental attitude, eco-community building, living spring water, and the best ever quality organic foods, wild foods, and juices and herbs. David Avocado Wolfe is the visionary founder and president of the nonprofit, the Fruit Tree Planting Foundation, with a mission to plant 18 billion fruit, nut, and medicinal trees on Earth. He has a store, and we always talk about some of the things that he has on his store. So I just want to make sure that you know that anything that is of interest to you, you can go to davidwolfe.com and use JJ as a code to get 10% off anything at any time. So for the rest of the time you're shopping around, it's not a one-time code, it's a forever code, and you just use JJ and you'll get 10% off anything that interests you there. I'm a shopper of his store and definitely recommend the quality. He doesn't have a ton of things, but what he has is very high quality, very specific things. And a lot of them we'll talk about today on the show. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Welcome, everyone. I've got another one of our favorite guests back. David Avocado Wolfe is back to talk about herbs. We're going to talk about the healing power of herbs. If you are finding this on YouTube and you're looking for David, hi, I'm JJ. This is my show. I'm going to talk. And if you don't like me, that is totally cool. You can find more of David somewhere else. David, where can they find more of Just Want You?
Fantastic. You can find me always at davidwolfe.com.
There you go. So head right there if we're not jiving, because I'm okay with that. Just wanted to set it up to know this is my show and I have an opinion. So, all right, we're going to talk to this, our third interview and conversation about some of the healing powers of not only food and herbs, but fasting that has on your body and healing. And we started to dive into some of the herbs last time, but we thought we'd do a whole new show. So welcome back to the show, David.
Right on. Thanks for having me back. Fantastic.
All right. So where do you want to go with herbs? Like, let's just to do the overview. I mean, you started to dive into it when we talked about superfoods, but we kind of separated it a little bit and went directly into just things that were just foods, but then looking at all the different plants and levels and layers of different kinds of herbs that we can use for healing.
I guess first step is herbs are part of the natural human diet. They're part of a diet of all primates. They're part of the diet of all mammals. And we've gotten so into food, and we especially domesticated food, which essentially has all the alkaloids bred out of them. You know, for example, if you have a wild plant, it has to survive. It's not protected by a farmer's fence line, and therefore it's going to have more protective alkaloids. Now, those alkaloids are actually medicines for you. So in the old days, let's say the original incarnation or the original intent or the original setup, our food had a lot of medicine in it because the food had to survive wildly. Now all our food's domesticated. And so therefore the herbs kind of fill that gap of medicine that modulates our immune system. Now, it actually is the thing that really gives us the later in life energy, right? In the beginning of your life, you need food to build your tissue and your bones and to build your muscle and your system. But when you're like 50, 60, 70, do you really need all that? You don't need all that food. What you're really looking for is the medicinal compounds that modulate your immunity, that make sure keeps you from coughs, colds, flus, and fevers, keeps you actually in peak health. And that's where we're going today. That's what we're going to talk about.
Let's start out with some of them, because I know you have a very robust store and things that you offer in that store. But I want to start with sort of the basic things people have in their kitchen, or the things that they could plant and grow themselves. Some of the things that maybe they don't even realize what the impact is if they use it maybe in a different way.
Yes. Okay. First thing is the basic culinary herbs: marjoram, thyme, oregano, rosemary. These things are actually, if you really dig into them, more and more research is coming out on the power of just these simple herbs. You could grow them on your windowsill. You could grow them on a balcony, and they're really fun to grow. And I used to grow, I love growing parsley, actually. And I started growing parsley when years ago, I was at Oxford University at Magdalen College. And I only had one plant on my balcony, and it was parsley. And I kept eating, it was the curly parsley. So I'd, every few days I'd have a little bit, it would grow back, and then I'd eat a little bit more. And it just starts out with something that simple. And then as you go deeper into it, we really want to get people to the real big category, which we call the super herbs, which are the top 100 herbs in the world, of which you don't need to have all 100, but it's nice to know what the top 10 are. For example, reishi mushroom, chaga mushroom. I'm growing an herb here in Texas that we just are absolutely in love with. It's in the top 10 in Chinese medicine, considered actually number 1 for longevity in Chinese medicine, which is gynostemma. It's a weed. It's amazing how well it's doing here. And it tastes good, right? That's another thing. It tastes good and it's easy. And then we could go down the list. Let's say, in the tropics, the best herb in the tropics is vanilla. I mean, you can't deny the magic of vanilla. I've got a whole bottle of vanilla downstairs that I brought back from Hawaii, fresh vanilla. Just the smell of it alone is powerful. Now, if you do, let's say you made a tea out of it. Let's say you took one of those beans, you made a tea out of it, and then you put it in the back of the fridge really cold, and you drink it, the flavor is like cream soda. That's really where the flavor comes from. It's vanilla tea, essentially. So there's magic like that to be had in the category that we call the super herbs, which are the most powerful of all the great herbs in the world. Cayenne pepper is one of those, by the way. It's in the most, the hot chilies, hot peppers are really profound for blood chemistry and cardiovascular health. And it depends, by the way. We can always select what makes sense for us in the situation that we're in, because we might be in a situation where we're working on our cardiovascular health, or we might be in a situation where we're working on, for example, tendons and joints. One of my favorites is actually, I wonder if I've got it here. I usually do. Let me see. Nope. It's eucomia. That's it downstairs, actually. And I love that one. That's a bark in Chinese medicine. It's like ginkgo. Many people know about the ginkgo tree, and that's like the last surviving member of its race. There's another tree like that in the world, which is called eucomia, EUCOMMIA. Weird spelling, of course, like Eucharist, like nobody knows what the hell that means. But anyway, it's a weird tree, and a really interesting tree, but it survived. It's the last surviving member of its race. It survived all the eons of time. And the bark has been used in Chinese medicine for thousands of years. And it's the number 1 most recommended herb historically in the world for pregnancy, in the history of the world, because it improves connective tissue, joints, tendons, ligaments, that kind of stuff. And you see how powerful just any single one of these are. So we kind of target it, like for me, I know in my genetics, like my genetic history, I'd be like, that's a weak area: tendons, joints, ligaments. So that's why I take that particular herb and I'm on it. Cardiovascular strength is very strong in my family, so I don't really need to worry about that side of things. I don't do as much cayenne pepper, that kind of stuff, even though I like it, because that's not where my focus is, because of my genetics, if that makes sense.
Right. And I remember us talking about charcoal and how I can't currently, I attain to be, like I want to be, able to get my gut to the place where that doesn't bother me, or that it is absorbed and it is taken in and it is used properly, and it isn't like, whoa, charcoal. And versus your constitution is stronger than mine when it comes to digestion and gut. My joints are pretty good, so I'm good there. But what I love about the super herb list so far is that there are a lot of them across over, right? Because reishi and chaga are mushrooms, vanilla and cayenne. All of these are still things that you would maybe eat, right? So I do love that there's sort of that crossover. And I know that when we're looking at, like, let's say essential oils, a lot of essential oils are based on in fact, there are doctors and books and things that create recipes to using essential oil instead of the herb. And which I don't know if, what your opinion is on that, because there's definitely ways to take in some of these that are more effective, and then things that we do to it that may change its potency based on if we heat it or if it's mixed with things. So why don't we go back to some of these crossover herbs? And I heard you say reishi and chaga. And then what was after that? Was it another mushroom?
Gynostemma.
Yeah, I wrote that down. Okay.
That's a really cool one. And
Right.
then we talked about vanilla and cayenne. And of course, the culinary herbs, the main ones. But we haven't gotten into, for example, a really popular herb right now is Tulsi.
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 I have tea. I have
You have
Tulsi
see,
tea.
you're on the
Yeah.
tea. See, it's Tulsi is one of the great herbs in the world. It's an adaptogen. And by the way, this crossover ability where certain herbs can actually have multiple effects, we call adaptogenic, so that they can, let's say you need immune system help. Well, Tulsi is great for the immune system. Absolutely awesome. But let's just say you're getting on a flight and you're like, geez, I've got a 6-hour flight, then a 4-hour drive. It's great for that too, to help you to adapt to that kind of stress. So that's one of the big ones. Another big one is that's the sister, and then the brother is ashwagandha from that system, from the Vedic system. And ashwagandha, the root of ashwagandha, is another super adaptogen, highly regarded, generally considered a great booster of testosterone and virility. Not necessarily for men, though, because good for women as well. Generally, the top herbs in the world are just as good for men as women.
Let's talk about how someone would start to decide and find information about what herbs would be right for them. Now, I have used some of the things that we've talked about, and not this eucomia, which that sounds really interesting, but I've been in Chinese medicine for 25 years. I've been going acupuncture and taking herbs for 25 years. Do I know what's in my herbs? No, because my acupuncturist is the herbalist that, and I've done everything from, I have a pot, like an herb pot where I boiled it myself. They gave me the dried roots and barks and leaves and things, and I would boil that and drink that. I still have that pot. I've also had it in tincture form and in powdered form, and where it's already made and liquefied and they sell it to you that way. I've done it in all ways. So, and sometimes I ask what it is and sometimes I don't. So where would you recommend somebody work with somebody, or can they just go based on certain symptoms? Because, like, unlike pharmaceuticals, you don't want to be taking, first of all, you don't want to be taking any if you can help it, but because of the side effects and they're made in the lab. But if someone's taking a pharmaceutical because they have to, you don't randomly, nor do you have to have them prescribed, and you can't just decide to take them, I don't think. And if you do, you're really it's a little dangerous because you don't really know, you're not taking everything into consideration. So when someone's deciding on how to use an herb, when to use an herb, why to use an herb, what are your recommendations?
It depends on your herbal literacy, right? So it depends on how tuned in you are with your body, and you got to be honest. And it depends on your knowledge of herbs, and you got to be honest about that too. Let's say you're just totally like illiterate, you're not into it at all. It's nice to have somebody recommend and be like, look, yeah, I've made, like, let's say you go to an OMD, an Oriental Medical Doctor, and they're like, okay, here's your bundle of herbs. You're going to cook them in that pot. You're going to drink it every night. It's nice to have that guidance. And then eventually you start going, okay, well, what's this? So, oh, this is poria, medicinal mushrooms commonly in those formulas. What's this? Oh, it's asparagus root. That's another one that's commonly in those formulas. Oh, what's this? Schizandra. That's another one that's commonly in those formulas. And you start to, then you start to develop herbal literacy and herbal knowledge. So it depends on where you are. Now, let's say you're pretty darn literate with this stuff like you are, and you've been playing around with this for a while. Then you're ready for, like, hey, I'm going to actually go, walk through the forest. I'm going to see if I can find a reishi mushroom. Now, reishi mushrooms are very prevalent across North America, even though, most people are like, wait, I thought that's from China. Nope. It grows every forested ecosystem in the world, and they're everywhere. And I'm in Texas now. So I had one growing right around the corner here, right next to the house, as close to the house as it could be. I'm like, that's a reishi mushroom growing out of there. And then it's time to experiment with that. Now, reishi mushroom is extremely safe. It's one of the safest herbs on earth. And it's safe for children, safe for babies, safe for elderly, everybody. And then you just go, okay, now what do? I pick this thing. And then, you dry it in the sun if you want. You don't have to. You can just throw it directly into a pot and cook it up if you want to. But it's nice to dry it in the sun. And then you have something you can use. You can break a piece off and be, okay, I'm going to throw it in the kettle and let's see what happens. And that's where you go if you're at that stage where I think where you are, you're already pretty herbally literate.
Thank you. And, but in terms of so it sounds like the delivery system that you think is the easiest, fastest, and maybe best across the board would be tea. Would that be correct?
I don't, for people like us, but there's other people I don't have time for tea. I've got to do it as a capsule or powder. And that's cool too. It depends. I like all forms. I do the tinctures. I do, like, if I look over here, I've got tinctures. Mm-hmm. I've got powders. I've got everything, every possible way that you could do these things. And then you just pick out what makes sense to you. Like, tinctures are real easy because they travel well. Let's say you're a business person, you're traveling 4 times a week. Tinctures are really nice. They travel real well. You can just do it in the plane. You can do it in the car. You can do it in an Uber, whatever. Powders are also nice. Let's say you're a type of person who likes to do like a smoothie in the morning. You're like, let's just throw this powder in here. That's great. And then capsules are another way to go too, because it's like, okay, I'm going to do like this morning, me personally, I did 3 reishi mushroom capsules. And that was just, I found them in the car and I was like, what are these doing here? Okay, I'm gonna take 3. And I just took 3, because I know kind of what the dosages are. And that's another way. And it just makes it simple again. And then another way is tea. Or you could do all of them. It depends on what you like.
What would you think of the top 3 reasons or symptoms or conditions where people could be utilizing herbs more to get a better healing effect, and to do more than probably what they're doing with, whether it be Western conventional allopathic or or just sort of the things that they like, some foods, or, most people don't have, like you said, a literacy around what are options for them. They think, oh, if I have a headache, I take a Tylenol, or if I have, digestion, I take a Tums, right? They don't understand, again, the power of the food or herbs or homeopathic or Chinese medicine or all the things that are available to you to try that don't have a negative side effect. What would you say the top 3 conditions or situations are where herbs would be really helpful to most people that they don't know?
Immune system's a big one. And I think, like, for example, coughs, colds, flus, and fevers are amazingly troublesome for people. Not for me, because I've been herbally literate for a long time. So I'm constantly on the herbs. I'm constantly cleansing my body. I'm constantly making sure that my immune system is functioning properly. So that's number 1. 2 is just the common aches and pains, right? The aches and pains of the joints, the age-related inflammation. We can so modulate that inflammation with herbs. I mean, one of the great herbs in the world, it's really, I've almost moved into, it's really a superfood, was turmeric. I mean, it's gone completely prime time. But it can't help you if you don't do it. If you don't use it, you got to use it whatever way you use it. I started out using turmeric just by juicing it. I take a little section, it's like a piece of ginger, and I just juice it and drink it, and was like, what the heck's this stuff? This is like 25, 30 years ago. Now it's more of you can get encapsulated forms and tincture forms. I mean, people send me all kinds of crazy turmeric products, but it can't help you if you don't use it. So inflammation, age-related inflammation and pain, that's another area. Another area is just beauty and skin, and just making sure that your hair and everything's glowing and growing bright. One of my favorite herbs is horsetail. It's not a horse's tail. It's equisetum. It's a type of ancient plant on the earth, and it's really good for fingernails and hair and blood vessels, and the things that grow in our body and that need the smoothness and silkiness to function properly. And that's not only our hair and skin, that's also our blood vessels. And so horsetail is a big one for me. I love that. And it's a very powerful antifungal. If we've been paying attention, just this week, they're announcing that there's a huge problem with candida spreading in health facilities all over the country. And horsetail is an antifungal, absolutely epic antifungal, and just stops candida in its tracks. Imagine not knowing that, but then imagine knowing that. And it makes a great tea taste good. It's easy to do.
This isn't an herb, but my guy, his daughter, both of his children are like, they're sort of, we're in different camps, if you will, about certain stuff. But over the years, I've been able to, by just living and being, and them being here and me cooking and whatever. And, over time, you sort of gain credibility. Like, you don't get credibility right away. You have to earn it. So I sort of earned it. And I remember being asked on a text message, like, hey, how do I get rid of a UTI? I said, baking soda. I said, just drink baking soda. And she's like, what? And then I sent her a couple different articles. And one, of course, had all this negative stuff that I didn't even see when I first sent it. And she goes, this article says, I said, don't pay attention to that because this is not, nobody makes any money selling baking soda to get rid of any UTI. I said, so just anyway, I asked her afterwards if it worked. I said, how do you feel? She go, oh, one time I just took it. I took one dose of it and baking soda for the win. It was gone. So wow. Again, it's that when you know that, because of course the question was, what? Baking soda? I'm like, yeah, it's like $1 at the store, like go get it before you get on the cruise, and boom. So when you don't, these simple fixes, peppermint oil for headaches, people don't realize that you smell some peppermint oil, essential oil, inhale it a couple times and your headache will go away. You don't need to take a drug. And so like you're saying, horsetail for an antifungal and candida and things that are going on. I mean, yeah, there's just so much power in these plants that we are not aware of because nobody makes any money selling them. I want to go back to turmeric for a second because, I have a certain line of essential oils where they sell a capsule that has like sort of half of the capsule is the powder and the other half is the essential oil. And I started to take those because the concentration of the essential oil felt more potentially powerful but I'm not, again, the whole delivery system issue. I want to talk about the different delivery systems because sometimes if you take something that has so many fillers in it, or again, it's not necessarily high quality, do we really get it? Do we really get in our body? And same thing with like vitamins and injections, like when you put it straight into the body, into the bloodstream, versus having it pass through the digestive system. So let's talk a little bit about delivery systems of these herbs.
Really important issue. A lot, we, for example, in the early days with the chaga mushroom, we were looking at products that were on the market. We found one product that contained only 1% chaga mushroom. It's marketed as a chaga mushroom product, 1%. And so that's a delivery system product. The rest is fillers and nonsense. And so you really have to look for something reputable. You have to go to something that you know is pure. For example, this woman sent me a blue turmeric product in alcohol extract that she made herself, and there's no filler. It's just alcohol and the turmeric. That's it. That's always nice. It's nice to have that. A lot of times when you get tableted products, those are notorious to be full of fillers. Encapsulated products, you could have magnesium stearate, GMO citric acid, GMO maltodextrin, other things like that could get in there. So you're going to have to make a choice. You're going to have to kind of select, and you're going to have to do a little research too and be like, is this really a reputable product? And you're going to have to try it out. A friend of mine makes a turmeric product. I'm actually was thinking about taking some today. I haven't opened it in a while. This is a new bottle. This is a turmeric delivery product that does turmeric and frankincense. Great delivery, really powerful.
Wow.
One time I had to drive from Santa Fe to Houston, Texas in one go. It was about 12, 13 hour drive. And I took 12 of these, and I was perfect when I got there. I was like, wow, it really worked. Great delivery system, great strategy. So, I know this doctor, so I trust the product, but geez, a lot of products I wouldn't trust. I'd recommend doing more research or really investigating or making sure it's something. For example, like if you just get fresh turmeric, you got the real stuff. If it's alcohol and turmeric together and it came from that farmer, you got the real stuff. It's better.
Right. I want to talk about fillers before, though. Frankincense, that's really cool, because what I learned in the last couple of years is that frankincense can help reduce tumors and keep you from getting tumors. And so, frankincense is something that we have in an essential oil, but most people don't know what it is or why we would ever take it. And so again, it just sort of begs the not the question, but the, pushing you forward here, everybody, to learn a little bit about herbs, because there's so much out there. Let's go to fillers. What are some of the top fillers people should be aware of when they look on a bottle or a tincture? And actually, before we get to that, I want to address the alcohol, because some people think, oh, I don't want the things to have alcohol in it. And I'll never forget a new acupuncturist who was next to another practitioner that I was using years ago, had invited to her opening. And she had these beautiful big glass containers, and each one had different herbs in them, and each one had a different alcohol. And they were delicious. But she was talking about the alcohol being a vasodilator so that the herbs could come into the bloodstream faster. And that was why you used alcohol, because I want people, because I already know what people are thinking. Well, what if I don't want it in alcohol? Isn't that bad for me? Well, the reason why it's in alcohol is because it gets into your bloodstream faster. But that doesn't mean that the ones without alcohol doesn't. Speak to about what I just said in terms of the alcohol versus no alcohol.
Well, alcohol's a driver. Alcohol's an amazing driver. And so it's something to be aware of. It could be good for that individual person. For example, I don't have any problem with alcohol at all. I'm not a drinker, but I don't have any problem taking any tinctures or anything like that. It's never had any side effects. I love it, actually. It's a great way for me to take the herbs in. Other people have a history of being in AA or NA or drug and alcohol problems. Not an appropriate thing. They might want to go to glycerin as the delivery vehicle. Glycerin's a reasonable delivery vehicle. A lot of products, though, will use, for example, GMO maltodextrin, which is a driver. Other products will use citric acid. They'll use a GMO citric acid, or they'll use a magnesium stearate as flow agents to make the capsules fill easier so the machines don't get gummed up. Those are other problematic things to look out for. Other products will use sand. They'll just use a silica in there. Just they're pushing literally sand through the product and through the machines into the product. And most of it is inert, but it'll go through you. But geez, I don't want to be eating sand. That's not something that sounds really great to me. Another thing that I look for as well is making sure that I always have something that is a vegetarian capsule or a Puluan capsule, because those digest better than the gelatin capsules. I don't know where those gelatin capsules came from. Yeah, so gelatin capsules are made out of horse hooves and cow hooves and animal hooves and pig hooves, mostly pig and cow. And geez, I don't want to eat that. I don't know where that came from. I'm not exactly sure if that's the appropriate thing for me to be eating. So I always choose vegetarian or Puluan capsules.
What's that last thing you said? Can you spell that?
Yeah, Puluan is Pullallan.
I've never heard of that before. What is that?
Sorry, it's Pullulan. There it is.
Okay. And what is it?
It's tapioca. It's
Oh.
manioc root.
Great. Okay. Good to know for the vegans, vegetarians, and everyone who doesn't want to take gelatin. Let's talk about the fillers. When someone's looking at the back, and you did name some of them already, but in terms of looking at, and I have tinctures on my desk here. I've got tinctures everywhere. Like this mineral one that I have here, organic aloe vera juice, Dead Sea mineral salts, potassium chloride, natural coconut flavor, monk fruit. This is a CBD. This is from a CBD company. Actually, no, they're a superfood company. Do you know Boku? They're here local.
I do, actually.
Yeah. So we've had them on the show, and I use their products. But in terms of looking at the things that are going to stick out, whether it be that it's not organic, because of course, if it's GMO, they're not going to say it's GMO. So how do we know? And then what are some of the things to stay away from when people are looking at herbs and they don't want to take something that's going to have a negative effect and cancel out the positive effect of the herb they're taking?
Okay, well, other fillers could be calcium chloride. Other fillers could be just salt, like table salt, and things that are used as stabilizers in the product. There's a whole laundry list, actually. And, there's color dyes, for example, red, yellow, and blue color dyes that could make it into the product. And that list is just voluminous. If you look at a product and it's got, hemicellulose, it's got calcium chloride, it's got sodium chloride, it's got silica, it's got red dye number 40. And if that's not, at that point, I'm going, you know what? I'm going to choose something else. It's got too many things in it that aren't the actual product itself. So that's kind of how I look at a label. Generally, or sodium benzoate, for example, when you look at the label and that, let's say you're going after reishi and then there's 15 other things there, to me, it's an automatic no. And that's just, being clever about exposure, because ultimately, by the way, it's just toxic exposure. And there's a certain limit for every body. Everybody's body has a different amount of limit of what they can handle of all this stuff. I had a woman one time, I think it was yellow dye number 5. She helped to invent it. She came to one of my events and she said they were instructed to make it addictive. I was like, what? You were what? She's like, we were instructed to make it addictive. Now, just this is the kind of shenanigans that go on. I don't know about you, but I just want the herbs. I want the food. I want the real thing. And I want it as natural as we can get it.
Yes, agreed. And for those that aren't going to make the tea, aren't going to grow the thing, aren't going to we're looking at, okay, what's the easiest, fastest thing I can do? You talked about stabilizers. What stabilizer would be a natural stabilizer that you could use in a tincture? Because wouldn't there have a need for that if it's going to be on the shelf and if it's not something that's completely fresh?
Well, alcohol is a great stabilizer. It's the best, right? So alcohol doesn't go bad. And you want that alcohol percentage to be, it's roughly around 30 to 35%. Once it's at that level, no bacteria can get a hold of it. No microbes can get a hold of it. And that's an important consideration, very important consideration. So this is the thing, though, is that's pretty strong in your mouth, right? Sometimes you can do these tinctures, you're like, that's a little strong, or it can burn you. So what is recommended often is, hey, put it in water, drink the water. A lot of times I'll take, like this morning, this is my little mocha cup here. And so I'll put the tinctures. I did this one, this Hoshu Wu one. This is one of my favorite herbs. It's a Chinese herb. It's in the top 10 Chinese herbs. And I grow it here in Texas. I actually love this herb a lot. And it's a root. And I just put that tincture right into my drink and just swirl that around. And even though there's alcohol in it, by the time it's diluted in my morning mocha, I don't taste it. I mean, it actually tastes pretty good anyway.
I've been doing black walnut, but I've been doing it. I think it's glycerin. It's definitely not alcohol. And I've been putting it in water, and I don't know that it would go in anything else. But I want to talk about some of your favorite, because I know you have an ashwagandha product, and it also has, what's the little fruit? Goji. Don't you have an ashwagandha and goji product? Because I have it.
You're thinking probably Schizandra and goji. Was it?
Oh, maybe that's what it is. Okay.
Schizandra is a big, look, we should talk about that for a second, because in the Taoist tonic herbal tradition, which became Chinese medicine, so in the Chinese herbs, Schizandra, according to my teacher, is number 1 of anything. And that's a big one. Over the years, I've been like, really? Is it really? I mean, I really love Schizandra. It makes it, it's the 5 flavor fruit. It's got a very interesting flavor profile. but is it really number one? And I have to say, over the years, it's gotten up higher and higher and higher on my list. And they say that goji berry and schizandra berry are the two sisters. So they're a great combo together.
Okay, so tell us what it does, which is what makes it the best.
Okay, well, schizandra is said to nourish all three treasures in Taoist tonic herbalism. What's that mean? It means it's really good for your jing, your vital life force. It's very good for qi. We know what that is. That's how you mobilize your energy moment to moment. And it's very good for shen. It's how you appear. It's your aura. It's over your overall countenance. Now, it also enters all 12 meridians and is generally considered not only a super herb, but really a superfood because it's a berry. It does have some calories in it. Now, I did an experiment one time where I was in Massachusetts, and there was a guy in Massachusetts who was growing fresh schizandra, and I could get fresh juice. And I was doing a teaching weekend, and I had no refrigerator in my room, but I had a big thing of the fresh juice. It was about 1.5 liters. And I didn't have anywhere to refrigerate it. So I just left it there. Fresh fruit juice over a whole weekend didn't go bad, didn't spoil. I was like, this is so weird. I mean, that I've never heard that room temperature. That's a schizandra, though. It has these incredible antimicrobials in it, very rich in minerals, and it's really a good and excellent source of red pigments. So that's cardiovascular, by the way. Same with goji. Red pigments like watermelon, tomatoes, goji berry, schizandra berry, it correlates directly over to cardiovascular health. And that's an important thing to understand about the colors. The colors always teach you and tell you the obvious.
Nice. Okay. What other, I also see, and this is not an herb, but I know one of the products that you have that I have talked about a little bit is colloidal silver. That's not considered an herb, but it's in a tincture and you would take it kind of like that. Can we talk a little about colloidal silver?
Sure. I mean, I love silver. What an amazing thing. What an incredible antimicrobial. Now, I'm very, very oriented towards using silver topically for infections. I think it's one of the best things ever for infections. And the particular type of silver that I really recommend is called coated silver because each one of those little 10 nanometer size, very, very tiny, small clusters of silver is actually coated in aloe vera polysaccharides or gel. You know how aloe vera has like a goo or gel in it? So what that does, it keeps the silver from connecting or bonding with itself or clustering, and that weakens the product when it clusters. Like, we don't actually want it to cluster. You want as many ions as possible. And this was something that was figured out over the last 5 to 10 years by a guy named Dan Goya, a famous professor up there in Clarkson University, mostly used in industry, not used in the natural health world. But he has his wife's sister is married to a doctor, and this doctor, a friend of mine, he said, this would be incredible in the natural foods world. Let's bring it over here. And anyway, we've seen amazing things. For example, one day a doctor called me up and he was working on a patient, and this guy had a bad cut, about 7 stitches right here. And his patient saying, hey, you could just put the coated silver directly in the wound under the flap. And the doctor called me. He's like, look, I am instructed not to do this in medicine. I can't put something underneath the flap because I'm about to seal it up. I was like, no, coated silver is perfectly fine. Put it underneath the flap. And so he's like, okay, I'm going to take your word for it, but I'm going to do it. So he did it. Now, a week later, I happened to be with both of those guys. It was completely random. I was like, oh, wait, how's your hand? So he breaks out his hand, and turns out his hand was healed. And the doctor right there on the spot took the stitches out. And in 1 week, that had closed up 7 stitches, pretty bad wound. And he had sewed it up with the silver in the wound, which is unusual. And again, doctors are not instructed to do that. But in this particular case, very miraculous results. So that's the power of silver. It's an incredible antimicrobial, expedites healing, really good for nervous system, and skin is part of our nervous system.
Interesting. But I know that a lot of it's like tinctures and orally. So let's talk about the other benefits of it orally besides, and how would you be using the tincture or like on top, like topically? Is there another product in another form, like you said, through aloe vera? Because you're not taking, I don't think there's a lot of aloe vera in a lot of the tinctures that
a lot of what's out there. Yeah. A lot of the colloid, I'm just looking around. I don't have a lot of colloidal silver. I mean, maybe I do. I usually have, different types of products around here. Let's see. Do I have one here? A lot of what's out there is not coated silver. It's just an ionized silver solution. So it's truly a colloidal silver. And in that case, my recommendation, get it into a spray bottle. It's more effective in a spray bottle. And so you just spray it on a wound, for example, very easy. And then you disperse it. And remember this idea, we don't want the ions to cluster. So the more we disperse them, the better the product's going to work. Now, if it's a coated silver, it's a lot easier to deal with because it doesn't matter. They're not going to cluster together. And with a coated silver, what you do is you dilute it, for example, in a small 1 or 2 ounce spray bottle. So you just put distilled water in there, for example, and you just spray it on topical wounds. Very powerful in that regard. I spray it on my eyes sometimes, just anywhere. Spray it on my teeth. I spray it on my teeth. So let's say you have something going on with your gum or whatever. Spray it right there. Done. Handled.
So obviously this conversation about herbs, like you said, there's a super herb list of the top 100, and I've been writing down the ones we've been talking about, and we haven't even skimmed the surface yet. So this is a pretty deep conversation. Where would you recommend people go next? I mean, I know you have a store, and I don't think you don't carry all of them, do you? All 100?
It's impossible. No, it's
right,
impossible.
Okay. All right. Well, but even like, where would someone go next with this information? Because again, we're talking in generalities about the healing power of herbs, and that you have so many at your disposal, both culinary and the super herbs and Chinese medicine and barks, and so many things that are out there for you to explore and try in place of a drug or a over-the-counter drug or a pharmaceutical drug, and things that are maybe even cheaper or at the same price, but then have a much faster and natural effect on the body. Where would someone go who's interested in learning more about taking a deeper dive into herbs? What would you recommend?
Okay, what I recommend is let's say, for example, medicinal mushrooms are coming across your table and you're seeing a lot of it. Dive into reishi mushrooms, your first best bet into that. Let's say you're like, okay, I'm into the Ayurvedic stuff, or I'm into adaptogens. I'm hearing about adaptogens. Tulsi would be your next big bet. That'd be a great way to go. Let's say somebody's like, look, I've been dealing, I've had 2 heart attacks. I've got heart trouble. I've got this and that, and it's cardiovascular. I'd really recommend diving into cayenne pepper research and cayenne pepper capsules and some of the amazing research that's been done in cardiovascular health with that particular herb. It really depends on what's coming, because you don't need it all. You can't take it all. I mean, I love all the top 100 herbs. Could I actually take those all in a year? Unlikely that I could take that in a year. It's not going to happen. What ends up happening is I just have to focus on what's kind of coming in front of me. And the medicinal mushrooms come in front of me a lot. So that's why I focus on them a lot. And that's very immunological. And that's like an area that I really love and that I'm passionate about. Doesn't necessarily mean that somebody has to do that. Let's say somebody's like, look, this Goji Shazandra idea sounds great. That might be the direction they go. Now, I'll tell you what's been coming up a lot for me, though, JJ, is pearl. Pearl, like a woman wears a pearl necklace, right? Now, this has been used in Egyptian medicine, Persian medicine, and been used in Chinese medicine for thousands of years as a food, as an herb. And when I'm in Hawaii, typically the food is so good there. It's got so much medicine in it. So a lot of it's wild. I'm drinking wild coconuts every day, for example, that I only really take one herb when I'm in Hawaii, and that's pearl. And so I was there for 2 months recently. And so I really got to calibrate, like, how powerful just that one herb is. It's really, really, that's a big one on my list, I have to say, is pearl powder. It's usually sold as a powder or crushed up and encapsulated. You could literally take the powder and you could eat it. You could take the powder and you could throw it in into a mocha. Is real good because it's calcium. And by the way, it's the best form of calcium. I would never recommend taking those oyster shell calcium products that they sell. If you want calcium, get pearl calcium, and then you could start digging in on the history of it. And that's one that because the flow brought me into that, I went for it. And that's you got to go with what's coming at you.
Okay, now you just told us a little bit that it's calcium, but why did you take it? Was it immunity? Was it like what are the benefits for you for pearl, and why you chose that, and why someone else besides calcium would take it?
Well, the reason why I'm taking it is because it was there, and I really like the alkalinity of it. Calcium is one of the most important alkaline buffers, and generally stress is acidic on our system. Just digesting the food, you go out and you're like, let's go out and eggs and bacon or whatever. That's so acidic, and you need an alkaline buffer generally for the types of things, the affronts on our system that come from our society and our civilization, just normal living. Your kid freaks out, stresses you out. It's a good alkaline buffer. So that's why I got into it. But what I'd recommend it for is not only that, it's also an excellent source of calcium, and it's really good, not only for teeth and bones and that kind of stuff, but for beauty. The history of its use in beauty is probably unmatched by any herb. Now, think about that statement. That's a profound statement that I'm making. And so I really recommend people look into that. Pearl for Beauty. And as soon as you start digging down that rabbit hole, you'll be like, what the heck? I didn't know about this stuff. For example, women are very concerned about this, the fine lines around the eyes, for example. Nothing's better than Pearl. Pearl's, that's number one for wrinkles. And it just goes on like that. So that's not the reason why I take it. I'm not exactly, I'm not, into the beauty side of it. I just love the way it makes me feel. I like the substance a lot, and more than I had suspected. And remember, I'm into this stuff. I do this stuff every day.
Right. No, I love learning new things. I've had a couple new things I've been trying recently. And to me, it's like, oh my God, like, where have I been? I can't believe I didn't know about this. So I'm the same, because it's sort of like the world and all these herbs become like, I love going grocery shopping because I love seeing what new products are out and what foods do we have and farmers markets and what's growing now and what's in season. And, that's where I learned about heirloom carrots, like purple carrots. I found at a farmer's market once, and I love purple carrots. They're my favorite. So now you have a store, and my audience gets a discount at your store. Do you have Pearl?
We do, actually. I finally was like, we should carry this product.
Well, if you're talking about it so much, you should carry it. Right. I'm sold now, David. Now I want to go buy it
too. Eucomia is another one I talk about a lot, and I should just actually carry that product too, because I really like a particular type of Eucomia product. Anyway, it's JJ is your discount for all your people. It's just those two letters, JJ, and make sure you click apply for anything at our shop, which is shop.davidwolfe.com, WOLFE.com. And then all your people will get 10% off of everything on the site. So, and you can use it repeatedly too. It's not like one time only or anything like that. So anytime you want something from the site, JJ gets you that discount.
Okay. So you have the Pearl powder now.
Yes. And another thing that I like to do now that I'm back, I'm back from Hawaii, and I'm back in Texas. And so I take that in combination with a particular magnesium product that my friends in LA developed. This is such a cool product. I could never get myself to take a magnesium product consistently because I didn't really like them. And there's so many different types of magnesium products. Some work on the brain. Some are good for digestion and bowel release. Some are good for your skin, and finally a friend of mine just like, I'm putting them all together. And that became a product which is called Magnesium Breakthrough, which is the first time in my life that I've ever been able to consistently take a magnesium product. So I take the magnesium and the Pearl together a lot. And that's really cool. Again, when I'm in Hawaii, there's enough magnesium in the food. I don't need to take magnesium or anything like that. But when I'm here, it seems to be more appropriate.
I know. I just got back from Italy, and the difference between being, traveling and being in a place where the culture vibe is different or your energy is different. I mean, I ate things that I don't normally eat, but man, did I come back and I had less bloating than I normally do here. Like, I actually was not better. And trust me, I did not eat in a way that I would ever do here consistently, but between quality of food there and lifestyle and energy. And I interviewed somebody who was teaching us how to make limoncello, and Valentino, so sweet, was talking about like everything being organic and not having any chemicals, right? Like, it was really cute how much, right? And that's sort of that's how we're supposed to be. But, except us in the US who want to make money from everything and put fillers in and extend it out. So we're trying to be those people who let you know that you have options, that not all the things on the shelves are going to be really great for you. So please learn a little bit, ask some questions, read the label, figure out what's in there. Again, it may not be perfect, but at least, as David said, if you have like 2 and 3 ingredients versus 15, and the one thing you're looking for is like the third one down, and there's 15 other ingredients, maybe not the right product for the most potency. So definitely check out. I mean, you go to davidwolfe.com and then get to your store, right? Because you have a tab at the top of the website that says store.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So it's davidwolfe.com, and the link will be underneath this video or in the show notes if you're listening on the podcast. If you're on the podcast, obviously by now, if you haven't figured it out, we're on a video. So come over to jjflazanes.tv. If you haven't met David yet, this is our third conversation. So yeah, I'm in. I'm going to try it. You've sold me. I'm going to buy the Pearl powder because why not? And I'm just going to keep exploring, but maybe definitely let me know when you do the Eucomia, because, you can't drop a bomb like that unless in the meantime, would you be willing to tell us where to get it with a brand that you like before you make it?
I love, my old friend, Ron Teagarden out there in Los Angeles, Dragon Herbs. He's got a great Eucomia product, and it's like this is his brand. This is what it looks like. This is the style. This is deer antler, but the product that he has looks like this, except it says Eucomia right here. And I just love what he's been doing over the years with his Chinese herbs are just, he's the most quality control guy in that world. I really actually I go to my friend Rulin or I go to Ron for quality Chinese herbs, because you know how it is. I mean, can I really trust that really came from that place and wasn't sprayed or fumigated or whatever it was? And Ron holds that because his wife is Chinese. So he's connected directly in to all the growers, all the operations over there. And then my friend Rulin grew up in Xi'an province in China. She became to UC Berkeley, and she's an amazing, she was the one who turned me on to Pearl originally, actually. And she's just an amazing being. And she's one of those people who it's genetic. Some people are like genetic acupuncturists and they just know what to do. She's like that with herbs. In Chinese herbs, she just knows like, oh, this formula, this right here, this will fix you. And like she makes a formula, cures somebody, she's that person.
Well, I've had that happen with herbs also, which is why I'm a big proponent, because it's also a short-term thing to get you back into balance, not something that you have to take for the rest of your life, like a blood thinner or a blah, 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 or whatever.
What a terrible idea.
It's so dumb. I'm on this blood thinner. When? For the rest of my life? What? No, that makes no sense. Fix the problem so you don't have the problem. So anyway, but as I digress, David, thank you so much. You and I could go off on a whole nother, let's be real. And then we'd get censored. So, so thank you again for coming back. Everyone check out davidwolfe.com. Links are below or in the show notes. And if you try that Pearl, and let me know. And if there's anything else you want to hear from David, let me know. I appreciate your time, sir. I appreciate your wonderful products and helping me to help the world heal themselves.
Thanks, JJ. Have the best day ever.